welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to do something a little bit different and a series that I would really like to do, which is going to be a Dungeons and Dragons story time. If you don't know, I am a avid Dungeons and Dragons player. I absolutely love playing. I homebrew my own campaign, and I recently had the pleasure of being able to join another homebrew campaign, and thought it'd be perfect to tell you each time that our party solves a case that I would be able to do a D&D story time. So as this is the first video, I thought it'd be perfect to sort of do an introductory and let you know a little bit about the world before we dive into the story time. So first things first, we are playing in a modern society sort of game. We will be able to have mobiles, use cars, and there are restrictions in place. You do have to have permits to be able to use magic and to be able to wield weapons, but in this game in particular, the world that we are playing in is a city called Haven. There are different factions within that city, and when we are playing, we are sort of playing all over this massive city, well, this world that we are playing in, and we are the detectives. So the city is divided into 5 factions. You have Central Haven, where the banks, the big business, the city hall, basically all the important stuff, and this is where our main office is held as detectives. We've got North Haven. This is where the high class society is, where all the posh people and expensive sort of society is. We've got South Haven. This is where the slums of the city is, where the cheapest housing, the red light district, the warehouse, the shipping district. So the poorest of the poor unfortunately do live here in this area. East Haven is like the shopping section of the city with flats. There is a docks here, as well as the beach and the pier. And then there is West Haven. West Haven is where the most housing for the city, as well as the schools and the airport is situated. So we are playing in a very modern world. And first thing, let me introduce you to our adorable characters. So first up is my character. This is Isabella Amora Darlington. She is a pink fighter tiefling who wields a rapier. She can be a little bit hot-headed, has been known to fly off the handle a little bit, but other than that is a very kind, compassionate person. Next up in the line we have Dr. Mayhem Mills. This is an adorable sniper, user, artificer, gnome. Really lovely character, can be a little bit paranoid at times, but is very astute at what they do. And next up in the line we have Gildart Morningdew. I really hope I've got everyone's names correct, because I was going off what I could hear. This is a high elf. They are a magic user. They are a little bit forward sometimes when they speak, but are very good at doing the job and getting and staying on task. And last up in our current lineup we have the adorable Griffin. This is a very rich high society tiefling who is a paladin. They are just basically a cinnamon bun, absolutely adorable. So far in the game we have noticed that they have had panic attacks if a situation does get very stressful, but very on the side of justice. So this was our current team when we started to play Dungeons and Dragons with this team in the city of Haven. This does change up for the second case, as we do get introduced to a new character, and one of the characters does swap out for another one in the side of the story. But let me tell you about the case of the Demon Dogs. Okay, so the case of the Diamond Dogs. Now, the notes are from Isabella's point of view, so it will be very Isabella focused. So just so you are aware of that, I am not purposely leaving out anyone's stories. It's just that when I make notes, I basically jot down ideas and then write a diary out from Isabella's point of view. This is just the way I make notes specifically for characters, just because it makes it a little bit more interesting for note taking. So Day one. We all have cases that have finally made us detectives, and this is our first day as detectives. So each of us take our time to head out to the main offices in Central Haven. Now, Isabella's flat is based in West Haven. It does have this tendency for things to get moved around or things to go missing. So at this point, Isabella's phone has gone missing. And as she's like sort of getting herself ready, she notices that her boots are being moved. And she's like, these damn pixies. She thinks it's pixies. And she puts her boots on and like goes out. And she's like, I swear if I find anything out of place, I am going to get a bug exterminator. Like, she is not happy. Stuff keeps going missing, and the fact that her phone's missing, she's very annoyed. But she heads to work by taking the tube. It's sort of a fairly normal morning. The kids are heading to school. The billboards are being put up for the coming election. The Pixie Times are heading out their newspapers. It's a very normal day. And when she gets to the offices, instead of waiting inside, Isabella decides, hey, I've got 15 minutes. I'm going to have a cigarette. And as she's having a cigarette, she sort of like watches people come in and out of the building. And the first person that she notices is a gnome with a sniper. She sort of looks over. She's got like these sunglasses on, so like while she's smoking to calm her nerves, she sort of like looks and is like, oh, they look interesting. I wonder what their name is. And the gnome goes inside, and then she sees the high elf and like, oh, he looks interesting. I wonder, you know, because there's lots of faces, and Isabella is very curious. And the first person that she actually does really notice is Griffin the Tiefling. And he has parked his very expensive motorcycle in a very public spot. And so she goes over and goes, darling, I'm sorry to bother you. You work there, don't you? Because she's very noticing the badge, noticing the authority. And Griffin's like, yes, and she, well, would it not be better to park there? And she points out the very obvious, like, parking spaces that cops use, and Griffin's very shy, and like, oh no, emotions, like, so obviously ends up parking over there. So we wait inside, and as we're waiting inside, a very small gnome with these massive glasses called Officer Sweettooth comes down. She's holding this tiny little white bear. She escorts us upstairs and lets us sort of like choose our desks. And as we're choosing our desks, cleaning them up and everything, we find this slime. Now this slime is the bane of our existence. We have come across it a few times, none of us can catch it, and it is frustrating, but apparently it's a part of the office, so you just have to get used to it. If a pen goes missing, it's probably the slime. But as we're sort of like getting ourselves ready, introducing ourselves, the main chief comes in called Alexander Anderson. Now he is basically built like a house. He is huge. He has like sort of one eye, a big rough chin, and a very loud laugh that seems to shake, and when he's walking you can hear him. He is a huge human. He's ridiculously huge. I swear he has giant blood in him, like but Isabella does know him, and that is part to do with her backstory. And so he introduces himself and says, okay, for your first port of call, I want you to go over all these closed or cold cases and put them in like basically sort them out. And it is a massive amount of stack of paperwork. Oh, sweet potatoes. Oh my lord, it is so much that we obviously take our time doing it. And it gets to about lunchtime. We decide we're going to go out for lunch. Obviously making sure we're going to get Officer Sweettooth some cake, because you can't not get Officer Sweettooth something to eat, because oh lord, she is adorable. As we head out, we come across a bunch of ruffians. Now they are attacking this poor woman who is clearly like an office worker, so we sort of like run over and battle ensues. We ended up taking care of the situation. Some very beautiful rolls, some fantastic hits. One does unfortunately escape. Isabella does boot one and ends up planting her boot on his chest to pin him down and knock him out a little bit. The thing you need to know about Isabella, she has a bit of a temper, so if someone hurts her or tries to hit her, she's gonna retaliate, and that's probably one of her biggest downfalls. She has a bit of a short fuse, and we end up taking care of the situation. Isabella escorts the woman back to the offices to make sure that she gets back okay, because she's very clearly shaken up, and to make sure that, you know, she has an excuse in case like anyone tries to be like a bit mean to her. And the rest of the guys go and get food, and they actually buy some food for Isabella, which is really sweet because Isabella was just prepared to not eat that day because she was just like, I'm too angry. And the rest of the day ensues. But when Isabella gets back, someone has been in her apartment. There are flowers on her desk. Now, to the reason why this is a little bit significant for Isabella, now, I know some of the players are listening, so spoilers, if you don't want to hear this, spoilers. Isabella's backstory, she is actually someone who is in hiding. Her family was decimated when she was 10 years old. They were a very rich, very powerful family, and she is the only living survivor of that family. So she has been in hiding, and so this is why her apartment is very heavily protected. Like, it was very heavily vetted before she even moved in there. It was actually against the chief wishes that she became a detective because she felt like no one else should suffer the way that she did. Because this entire time, everyone thinks that she's dead. And it's been 15 years since then. But there are flowers on her table in the middle of the kitchen. And these are her favourite flowers. So immediately she freaks out. She calls up Anderson, like, yes, this has happened, blah, 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 blah. And, like, she's panicking, and he takes her to the safe house while they are going to investigate the flat just to make sure that nothing nefarious is happening. So she's had a fairly rough night, and this is before our first major case that happens. So she goes back to the safe house and decides to just drink away her worries. She is very heavily dependent on substances like alcohol and cigarettes. They're sort of her coping mechanisms. Not very good coping mechanisms, but they're her coping mechanisms. So she, the next morning when she arrives, she is slightly hungover. She's not feeling great. But she does have a new phone because the day before they did go shopping and had a little bit of fun. But I digress. Case 1. They're in the middle of going through like paperwork and stuff, and Alexander Anderson calls up and goes, I need you to go and look at a case. There's a body that's been discovered, and I need you to go and look at it. So we immediately go, driving cars. Now, Isabella doesn't drive, so Mayhem drives that vehicle, and she's like, yes, love this. Talks to Mayhem a little bit. Griffin takes the other car with Gildar, and oh boy, it went so wrong. Few long turns. So Mayhem and Isabella are the first ones on the scene, and it is quite a brutal murder. There is a homeless gentleman who has been discovered, and he has basically been mauled. I'm not going to go too much into those details because I know some people are a little bit more sensitive about that, but he has been mauled, and it is quite a gruesome scene. So we're going over investigating, and there was one witness. So Isabella goes to go and interview the witness while Mayhem goes to go and look over the body. So while Isabella's interviewing this old lady, she is absolutely bad. She is just crazy as anything. There is a random lady, she's talking nonsense, talking about burning eyes, howl. This is named Lizzie. She talks about PB&J, like the PB&J people are coming, like, oh lord, like what the heck. Like, she is completely and utterly going over these same words again and again. So Isabella sort of like tries to calm her down. It's very good roles despite her having a -1 to charisma. She does absolutely fantastic. Very proud of my girl for this. As she's going through, she's having a conversation, and she speaks to Anderson saying, hey, this witness needs to be taken to protective custody just in case while we're looking through this case, because she right now is our main witness. And so she ends up in protective custody and in the same place where Isabella is. And Isabella is going to be spending some nights like sort of visiting Lizzie, making sure that she's okay and all that. She is a very old homeless lady, so Isabella has like sort of a soft spot for this. So in investigating this body, we find out that there is the guy has come into a lot of money, and we don't know why. Izzy sort of mentioned how he came into money a few days ago. He came back from the docks bragging about how he'd come into quite a bit of money, and talking about he was a bit of a drug dealer as well. So this seemed to be tying it into the docks. Now, while we're investigating this, we go back, we are talking over the case notes, and Isabella's like, is there any other cases that have popped up? And it turns out that there has been other cases with very similar circumstances. So Isabella and Sweet Tooth are going over those notes while the others go down to the morgue to go and talk about the body. Now, the body has demonic presence on it. There is quite clearly heavy mauling, and they are talking about where the impressions go. What does this mean? And Isabella is like totally doing the vision board, like there is like vision board notes everywhere, and we have had no time to stop. We've had no time to eat, we've had no time for a break, and as we are talking and like going over notes, and this is towards the end of the working day, we get a phone call again. Another body has been discovered. So at this point, Isabella really has not had a good day. She is hungover, she is hungry, she is desperate for a cigarette, and like they've barely had time to like stop and take a breather. So as she sort of like is getting there, she's very irritated, and this other body that has been discovered is eerily similar circumstances, but this time it's a shop owner. The shop has been absolutely brutally done. It was sort of like a Bucks kind of cafe, and there are more witnesses this time. We have four main witnesses. A human, she's the one who actually called because she saw a beast run away and discovered the body. There was a shapeshifter who's like got a hoodie on, and he's sort of looking a little bit shifty, but he was also a witness, and a bugbear couple. And so Griffin takes over. The woman takes us one side because she's very clearly not having a good time. She's like on the brink of like a proper panic attack. So he takes her away so that she doesn't have to see the scene, to try and calm her down, and he talks with her to try and get her account. So Isabella goes over and speaks to the shapeshifter and learns out that he works on the docks. He's actually just finished his shift. He saw the woman screaming, so came round. He didn't actually witness an awful lot, but he does mention a few things. He mentioned that the witness was on the phone, and I said, oh, so you work on the docks, is there any suspicious characters that have gone about? And he's like, yeah, I saw 2 suspicious characters the other day. Turns out it was 2 of our team who Isabella had sent over there while her and Mayhem went to go and interview the homeless people. They actually went to the docks, so they interviewed the homeless people to try and find out a little bit more information about the homeless man who unfortunately had passed. They went to the docks to go and find out a little bit more information. They completely failed at that. Mayhem and Isabella did find out quite a bit of information that was yet again leading to more cases of people being missing and them coming into a lot of money. And yet again, they find out from a bugbear couple that this gent had come into a bit of money. He was having money troubles and recently had come into a bit of money. So, all the dots are connecting here. but they find the footsteps of the hellhound and decide to follow them. And as they are following them, it leads to the sewers. Now, Isabella's like, I don't want to go down there. It's just, we should go to the docks. That's where all the information is leading. And everyone's like, no, we should go into the sewers because this is the second time we've been led to the sewers. And Griffin's like, I am sensing demonic presence. There's definitely demonic energy and it's leading this way. Okay, let's go down. It was not a good time down there. It was not a good time at all. Isabella unfortunately got a little bit poorly, and they ended up fighting rats. And guess where it led them? To the docks. I was so mad. But we decide, like, it's getting quite late. We relay all the information that we can back to Anderson, and we decide that tomorrow we'll go fresh-faced to the docks, like get a bit of food in ours. And as we are heading back, Isabella finds out that about her home. Turns out her home is sentient, and the flowers were the home welcoming her back. Anderson is obviously a little bit freaked out. Isabella goes, it kind of makes sense. Like, I suppose I ought to give it a name, at least. So, you know what she's going to be doing in her downtime. She's going to find a name for this sentient house. And it was just trying to take care of her, because she wasn't taking care of herself. Which is very sweet, but also at the same time very creepy. But I digress. As we go through all this information and we put our notes together, a name pops up. Larkin SeaWorld. He has a lot of money. He has more cash than he should do with his trading business. And they find this information out while they're talking to people at the docks. And they spot Larkin. Larkin spots them. He runs. A chase ensues. They literally follow him down the alley. So the group, Mayhem, Gildart, and Griffin run after him. Isabella decides, I'm going to try and head off to where the alleyway meets. So they run in two different directions to try and make a pincer movement. It kind of doesn't work. Larkin laughs at them. He brings out this coin that has like this sort of beauty. It has these runes on them, and as he does, these two hellhounds bring forth. And as these two hellhounds bring forth, they start attacking them. They start attacking the group, and Isabella is like, no, you are not getting away, Larkin, and tries to run after him. But as she tries to run after him, the hellhounds grab her by her arm, and she's trapped. The situation is dire. The team are trying their best, but the hellhounds' howls just sort of like bring the fear of God into them. And as like they seem to be, and Isabella just like wrenches her arm out, and as she wrenches her arm out and starts to dash, a large figure comes around the corner. Enter Big B. Big B, a giant half-orc barbarian. He's a slightly older fella. This is a new character in the midst. A new player joins the team. I will introduce him more in the next case, because this will be more as Isabella gets to know him. But he sort of rounds the corner. He sees the situation. He sort of like fights in with them. He like tries to take care of the hellhounds. They are enough of a distraction that Isabella is starting to run after them. While they're taking care of the hellhounds, Isabella is going to run after that shark dude. She runs after him and she catches up. She tries to tackle him. The strength, unfortunately, she just isn't strong enough to tackle this giant shark dude down. He backhand slaps her. Did I mention that Isabella has a short temper? Immediately, as a reaction, Isabella kicks him in the nuts. A little bit too hard, and you hear a popping noise. I can hear people cringe right now. You hear this popping noise, and immediately he is down. She handcuffs him, tells him his rights, and just sits on top of him as she's contacted police to come over. and takes a few selfies for the group chat so that they can see. As their fight is over, they come up and Larkin is under custody. He is behind the hellhounds. Like, it is a lot. Like, they go back, all the information is gone through, his officers are being cleared out so that they can gauge a little bit more information, and Larkin is under arrest. They found the perpetrator of the hellhounds, but it is not over. As they go through and the case is sort of being solved through, and Chief thanks us through the work, we're going through reviewing the evidence. There is a picture of us in the newspaper. Isabella hates that shirt that she's wearing. Oh Lord, no, why did she ever wear that shirt in the first place? Terry the Slime strikes again, this time on Bigby's desk. Mayhem has decided that she wants to work in a different department, so unfortunately we do have to say goodbye to Mayhem, and it makes Isabella really sad because she felt like she was just trying to bond with Mayhem and they never quite got there. And a new character pops in. We don't really get a chance to really talk much. Their name is Vi. She doesn't really get a chance to talk much to them because then they decide that they're going to go and interview Larkin. They go down to the offices and Isabella's like, I want to be in that room. He backhand slapped me. I want to be in there because if we can do good cop, bad cop here, I will be bad cop because he is going to be terrified of me right now. Yeah, she knows, doing that to a person will make them put the fear of God in them, and she wants to be intimidating. She's a 6'3" hot pink tiefling. Like, that little bit of power is very, very intriguing to her. So her and Gildar decide to go in the interview room, and Isabella doesn't do much talking. She just stands against the door, and while Gildar does most of the talking, and Larkin is refusing to speak. And as he is refusing to speak, he starts to spiel on, and we know that he sold his soul for this coin, and we're just like, you're gonna go to jail either way. And it's like, oh, jail doesn't matter to me. You guys have no idea what's coming. You think I'm afraid of the wars? No, you guys in your little bubble, you think of nothing. And then a demonic voice starts to take over, and as it takes over, one of the things that really stood out to me, Isabella, was still wearing your daddy's jacket. And after that, she just, it was almost like radio silence, but he knew things about each of the players that we ourselves had not talked to each other about. And as he's sort of crackling, as his voice it's extending into this demonic essence, and that green is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and oh Lord. And then suddenly he bursts into flames. Isabella immediately rushes forward, but tiefling, there should be resistance to fire damage. This is hellfire damage. Oh, it burns. It immediately almost takes her out as she tries to wrestle and basically save this guy, and he's laughing and laughing as his body burns to a crisp. Anderson immediately bolts through that door, because while this had all happened, that door had been locked. We hadn't locked it. Someone had locked that door, but he knew all of us were there. He could see the others through the two-way glass. He knew that we were all there. And as we're going through and we're investigating the remains, there is the same demonic scroll on the inside of the skull. He was a puppet to someone. And as the case closes, as all leads are wrapped up, Election Day is coming near, folks. Maybe that has a bigger play in what's to come. So that's just Tale of the Demon Dogs. I know it goes on for a little while, but holy smokes, it was one of the most interesting cases that I had went through as like a player. It was so much fun, and I'm very excited for our next case. So I won't be doing another video until we solve our next case, but I will try and make sure that my notes are a little bit less sporadic and all over the place, because there was so much information and there was just so much that happened that it was fascinating, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to give you more adventures of Isabella Amora Darlington and the Colour Splash crew, because that's our little name and I think it's so cute. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of like D&D story time. Let me know if you would like to see more content like this. I know it's a long video, but I felt like there was so much information that I just had to tell you, and I left a lot of information out. But I hope you all have a absolutely wonderful day. I hope you like the poster that I drew for the campaign. It's very inspired by film noir and like the Dungeons and Dragons sort of like colours. I've got a player's notebook which I was really inspired by for the colours for this, but I really have enjoying this campaign so far. Let me know stories about your campaign. What's the craziest thing that you've ever done? And if you're a player or a DM, give me your stories. I find stories so fascinating and I love hearing about Dungeons and Dragons. It just makes me very happy. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Remember to love what you do, keep drawing, and as always folks, stay creative.